Namaskar. Good evening to all. First of all, our apology, we couldn't start the program on time. We got held up in traffic, which was not expected on a Sunday. So BKC gave us a surprise that we didn't expect. But better late than never. So we are all here. So I would request the president of Maharashtra Seva Sangh, CA Chandrasekhar Vaze, to invite Jeffrey Armstrong on the stage. Please. Please, Jeff. The format of this program is Jeffrey would speak for about 30 minutes and we would open up for conversation. In fact, yesterday we had a scare whether Jeffrey would be able to come to Mumbai. We had a program lined up in Villaparle today morning, one now and then a couple of more later this week. And then fortunately he's been able to make it. His voice is still not fully in shape, but he still remembers the day 19 years ago when at a short notice, Maharashtra Seva Sangh had put up a program like this together. And at a very short notice, this hall was completely full with a lot of youngsters that time. A lot of them were Sanskrit lovers. This time, we are on a Makar Sankranti day. And this was a Sunday, so I could convince them to come from western suburbs. Otherwise, you all know it's too tough to come on a weekday here. But the cost of that is Makar Sankranti day, too many programs lined up all over the place already, cultural programs. So we couldn't get the full house that we desired, but it was a trade-off. But we really appreciate all of you who have spared your time to make it on a Sunday. Really appreciate it. So what I would do is I would now request the president of Maharashtra Seva Sangh, CA Chandrasekhar Vaze, to formally welcome Jeffrey on behalf of all of us and of course on behalf of the Maharashtra Seva Sangh. I'm sure as a part of his talk, Jeffrey will touch upon the book that he has very recently written about, which is the decolonized English translation of the Gita. But the topic which is given to him is, can Bharat again become the Vishwaguru, or can Bharat again reclaim the position it had thousands of years ago? Before we request Jeffrey to share his thoughts, I'm going to request the president of Maharashtra Seva Sangh, eminent chartered accountant Chandrasekhar Vaze, to say a few words on the occasion, and then we'll request Jeffrey. Before that, I will be formally introducing Jeffrey as well.
Namaskar and good evening. Dr. Abhijit Fadnis, who has been the main coordinator of this event, Mr. Jeffrey Armstrong, the distinguished speaker and a world-renowned thinker and a writer, and he has many qualities which Dr. Abhijit will introduce to us. Mrs. Armstrong, I believe your name is Sandra. Yes. because 19 years ago, the couple had come here, and as Dr. Abhijit mentioned, that the house was really full. Today also, gradually people will come. On behalf of Maharashtra Seva Sangh, I extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you. I believe all of you had tilgul at the entrance. Tilgul is the traditional sweets that generate heat in our body during this chilled season. Chilled climate for us, for the Americans or Canadians, perhaps this is not that chilled. But yes, we Bombayites feel that it is very chilled. Well, we are having a wonderful event today. The credit goes to Dr. Abhijit Fadnis, who himself deserves a very long introduction, but it will take at least 2 hours if I start introducing him. I also extend my sincere good wishes on behalf of Maharashtra Seva Sangh for the new year 2023 as well as the Makar Sankranti. About Maharashtra Seva Sangh, ours is an 85-year-old organization, very reputed social and cultural organization. It's full of events. We organize around 100 events every year. That means every week there are at least 2 events. And there's a great variety of events, variety of topics. There is consistency in organizing the programs. There's a discipline. It's a high quality programs, complete transparency in the operations, and therefore we enjoy a very rare degree of credibility among people. And that's a matter of pride to all of us. Well, we have music, we have dramatics, we have lectures, speeches like this. We have a very rich library containing about more than 40,000 books on various topics. It's a very rich collection of books. We have a women's section called Maitri. We have Sanskrit. We have 10 to 12 different divisions which are dedicated to different topics. So we have Sanskrit department. Every year we write a fresh new drama and stage it for the state level competition. We have finance, we have health, we have science and technology, then mountaineering. We have Giri Mitra Sammelan, which is a unique feature all over the country here. And even the mountaineers from abroad also attend that function. Giri Mitra Sammelan is the, basically you can say, get together of all mountaineers and trekkers. Then we have a charitable dispensary. We have health section. We have, for guidance of the visually challenged students, we have a separate activity called Drishti Seva Kendra. And above all, we also work in collaboration with the armed forces. We have many lectures, presentations, and exhibitions. And similar activity, there is a replica of this institute at Airoli, Navi Mumbai. So there also similar events are organized. Today's event, as I mentioned, it's a very unique one. Mr. Armstrong, is a celebrity, and in various fields he has an expertise which Dr. Abhijit will introduce. But we cherish the memories of your speech which had taken place about 19 to 20 years ago. I must thank Mr. Armstrong for a very kind gesture because he has traveled all the way from Canada to enlighten us. So I am sure this event will be a very memorable event. All of you will not only enjoy this, but will also get enriched. For this, I must also thank Dr. Fadnis for his efforts, because for last 3 or 4 days, I think he has been continuously attending to Mr. Armstrong. And therefore, I wish all of you a wonderful evening, a very enriching experience. Thank you and Jai Hind. In fact, today's lecture, unlike in other events, we have normally in Marathi, but today we are having it in English. But I am sure that Mr. Armstrong is an expert in Sanskrit, and Marathi is very similar to Sanskrit. So next year he comes, he will speak in Marathi, I am sure. Thank you very much.
It's my privilege to introduce Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi. I first time got in touch with him, that was late 2003. I had just become a part of a global group called as Vedic Friends Association, who are actually Western Hindus who were born in a different culture, but out of their own choice, they had adopted the Sanatana Dharma culture, and they were doing a lot of activism out of US. So I reached out to Shri Nandanandana Dasji, whose name was Stephen Knapp, and I offered to him that in case any of you are touring Bharat, particularly Mumbai, I'll be very happy to offer my seva and see if we can conduct your speaking tour and also ensure that you get to meet a lot of people who are from the spiritual leaders community. So Shri Nandanandana Dasji wrote back to me saying that he's definitely coming to Bharat, but his plan is to go to Nagaland. But he said, Kavindra Rishi will be touring Mumbai and see if you can host him. And the profile came to me. Once I saw the profile, I thought I had offered something which will be too much for me to handle. So first let me introduce him to you and then talk about some of the anecdotal aspects. Yeah, I'll stop. Yes. I also want to give some relief to Jeffrey's. So when I read his resume, it was very impressive. 4 degrees from US universities in 4 different teams, right from English literature to comparative religions. Having headed the sales function of Apple in the Middle East, having acted as the spokesperson of the microcomputing industry out of the Silicon Valley. But before that, during 69 to 74, he stayed as a brahmachari in an ISKCON ashram, living a celibate life for 5 years, opting to stay as a brahmachari and take to learning from this culture rather than going on an unjust Vietnam War, because his family name is Armstrong, and the family is a Kshatriya family. His father was a fighter pilot in Second World War. His grandfather was involved in the First World War. So that's the tradition. And he was almost slated to go for the Vietnam War. But instead he decided to join Krishna's army rather than an unjust battle. And having stayed for 5 years as a brahmachari, he took to learning a lot of the Vedic wisdom. I don't have time to share all the anecdotal examples, but I'm going to share one, taking the liberty. After 5 years and a long corporate innings, after his Apple stint and involvement in the microprocessing industry, he took to a very different career, which was that of a corporate comedian, acting as master of ceremonies for Fortune 500 companies, where he was extremely well paid. He gave all that up in 1996 to completely devote his life to further learn about Vedic wisdom, to spread the Vedic wisdom to the best of his ability. So somebody who is a wrestler by training, a martial arts expert, is also a Vedic astrologer. So during his first visit, I got to know something which we were never taught in the school, but which is what Vedanga Jyotish considers, which is the motion of the Earth's axis itself. We have all learned about Earth rotating around its axis, Earth rotating around the sun, but we never had in our textbook the fact that the Earth's axis itself rotates, which is what the Vedanga Jyotish considers. That's what he told me that time. Having seen a CV like this, I was quite intimidated to host him in a middle-class house in Thane and drive him around in a Maruti 800 car. So I arranged for a stay with an industrialist family and organized a car with which I could ferry him. But in 2006, he said, Abhijit, I want to stay with you. And that's how he stayed with us in a modest home for 10 days. And that's when I got to see him very closely. I'll just share one anecdotal experience and then I'll close my introduction because we are all here to listen to him. I was very keen that Jeffrey gets to meet Shankar Rao Abhyankar. We all of us, particularly from Marathi culture, we all have known him. I was pursuing him so that Jeffrey could, he could at least meet Jeffrey because he's doing colossal work in the Bhakti tradition. And he said, I have come across so many Westerners who have a hidden agenda. So he was not at all keen to meet. I pleaded and finally agreed for 5 minutes. That was the time. For 7 days, they had organized a talk in Mulund. And then he spared 5 minutes at Hotel Sharanam, which is in Thane, where he was put up. 5 minutes became 1.5 hours, and both were not letting each other go. So we all have heard about this term which we use in Marathi, Kupa Manduka Vritti, which is a frog in a well syndrome. So Shankara started telling him about his experience with this kind of an approach. After that was over, Jeffrey, presented his own poem to him in next 5 minutes on the same theme and presented a CD to him. He has written over 2,000 poems. It's unimaginable that somebody who is a martial arts expert who can guide, he told me, looking at my horoscope, which martial arts I should go for. That's the level of his expertise. A wrestler by training can be a poet. It's unbelievable. So the next day we were in Pune. Shankara was very keen that we visit his establishment. And we visited his studio. And in that studio, of course, there was one gentleman who was a sitarist by training. And Shankara's nice dhun was played there. And Jeffrey asked this gentleman, is it in Rag Todi? And that man was floored. He said, how do you know the Rag? He said, as a brahmachari, I used to learn sitar. And I still remember the ragas. So I think I can go on. I can go on and on because it's an emotional moment for me too. But I think I don't want to come in the way of Jeffrey and you. So let me present Jeffrey. He will speak for about 30 minutes and then we'll have Q&A. Welcome, Jeffrey.
This is called bringing Ganga water to the Ganga. I was remade in the image of the Vedic culture by my gurus. But let me begin where I always do. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. Like it, huh? Guru Devo Maheshvara. Guru Sakshad Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vishvaguru. You already are Vishvaguru. But it is the inevitability of history and culture that the gunas are struggling all the time on the planet. Matsya Kurmavarahascha, Narasingho Chavamana, Ramo Rama Charamascha, Krishna Kalkir, Janardanaha. Sri Krishna appeared as the final avatar, except for Kalki, so as 9 out of the 10 Kalki comes and cleans up and we restart. But Bhagavan Sri Krishna comes at an appropriate time in history where Kali Yuga is just unfolding. Because I came in from the outside, it's very important, if I may say, that you not think badly of yourself because of Kali Yuga. You're the one that told everyone about it. You warned us all. This is Kali Yuga. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be messy. It's going to cause chaos. It's the age of quarrel. So, the first thing I want to say to you is, persons like myself have gone through this process, so you will see that the Vedic Vidya is still very much alive and is transforming the world. And that, therefore, some of us can act as inspiration and role models for your children. Because when a white guy from the West says he's a dedicated Hindu and bows to the culture, then they're going, I did that the last time too. I can't have water where my hands are. So it shows that the culture and the knowledge is very much alive. I made up a little saying about this recently, that during colonization, the British knew how wealthy you were, the crown and the jewel in their crown, weren't you? That's what an insult that is. You're the country we're pillaging right now, and we've taken your beauty and put it into our crown. But during that process, Lakshmi was stolen by the British. They didn't steal the Vidya, they stole Lakshmi. But they didn't know that wherever Lakshmi goes, Vishnu follows. So look at the world right now. Hundreds of millions of yoga practitioners all over the planet. Have you ever seen that happen with Christianity, with Islam, with Judaism, with anything? And look who the primary practitioners of yoga are. Females around the world. The reason is they've been disrespected. They haven't had a role model in the feminine divine. They haven't had a way of looking at themselves that was sacred. They were diminished. In America, they couldn't vote on their own property. But what they do have is a woman's intuition. They sensed in yoga an opportunity to readjust their embodiment, to change how they live in their body, and to have an identity that justifies them as divine in their physical as well as internal sense. Because there is no divine story about the feminine in any of the other civilizations except for the First Nations, the indigenous cultures, but not in those Abrahamic traditions. It's my way or the highway, Yahweh. It's by coercion. Female has nothing to do with it. Never mind, she just cooks in the kitchen. That's it. Really? Like a this puzzle is that technology as we know it comes from Sanskrit. I worked for Apple Computer in the Silicon Valley. I worked for 18 years in Silicon Valley, and I studied it a little bit. You may not know this, but binary mathematics came from the Rig Veda. That was its source. And programming language means think. Could French be a programming language? Italian? No. English? Oh, no. Computer would go crazy. So what language is the most perfect language on our planet? Sanskrit. But I don't hear this coming from people like yourself enough. I don't hear you saying Shiksha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas. These are the 6 Veda Angas, the limbs of the Veda. So you see, when you come in from the outside like I do, you need a reprogramming language. I'll take it one step further. Here's the term. You have been framed. You see it? Now, if there's a whole set of rules for framing and unframing. If you fight against a frame and say no, the frame gets stronger. When President of the US, Richard Nixon, was called a criminal, he got on TV and said, I am not a crook. And everyone knew he was. If you oppose a frame, it gets tighter. So you do not say no to it. You show what it really is. It's an opportunity to present who you really are, what your culture really is. And you're in the midst of that opportunity right now. In other words, and you know this, I'm sure you do that, opportunity, problems are opportunity. Either problems are something you can't cure or problems are opportunity. You're in the midst of a huge historical opportunity right now. And if you don't address it correctly, you will lose your children to this historical moment. In order to lead them, you have to have a stance, a posture, a perspective, a vision. So whenever a guru gives you their grace, whenever they give you that gift that they carry, and I had 3, I had a Vedanta guru, I had a Jyotish guru, and then I had a Sanskrit guru. My professor of Sanskrit, Ramana Sharma, was a Benares Pandit's son. He had memorized all 4,000 rules of the Ashtadhyayi Panini. This is something in Sanskrit, he'd say rule number 2,235, if this, then this, and that. So he knew Sanskrit. He was Pandita. I am not Pandita. I know some Sanskrit. But I know enough to be dangerous because I know what to do with it. Okay? So this brings us to something that I did recently. After many, many years, I didn't do it just to write a book. I'd already written about 8 books before I did this one. This isn't my book. This is our book. This is Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So there are no purports. There's no explanation of the verses in this book. That's not my place. Shankaracharya can do that. Ramanuja can do that. Madhva can do that. Not me. I'm just a servant. But I'm a servant who knows of Sanskrit to be dangerous, and I know English better than almost anyone. So we got to fix the problem. The problem is you've been trained by Macaulay and English to substitute incorrect Christian religious words for your own Vedic Vidya. Bhagavan is not God. And you'd be surprised to know what God is. If I said, what is the meaning of the word God really? You'd go, or you might say Bhagavan. But actually it's not. It's not a synonym. The word God is from the Sanskrit word hutam. Hutam. The smoke arising when the offering is placed in the mouth of Agni in the Agnihotra Yagya. Hutam. So that smoke is carried by what are called Angi Rasas. The word Angi Rasa gave us the English word angel. Think about that for a minute. The angels are originally workers for Agni. They're not Christian. It's a stolen word, a colonized word. So hutam is that smoke which the Christians hated so much, which the Muslims hate so much. They all are jealous of the fact that the Vedic culture talks to all the different departments that are running the universe. The devas and devis. Yakunden Rutusarahara Dabalaya Subaravastagritaya Vina Vardandamanditakarya. I work for her. Saraswati Ma. This is Vak Yoga. This is using language to readjust the situation, reprogram it, reframe it, and bring the real meaning forward. So the first thing we did with the Bhagavad Gita was take out all of those words. God, sin, heaven, hell, etc. Now you may wonder, what has this got to do with the Vishva Guru coming back? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You have to stop using the wrong English words. Globally, as a country, if I had my way, if I could help you do this, Narendra Modi or whoever could do it, whoever's got the voice of everyone would say, we have a list here of English words we'd like you to stop using. They're toxic, they're poisoning your culture, they're damaging, explaining who you really are, they're diverting it and dissecting it. Don't use these words if you really want to express your culture. Okay? So just think carefully of this. Those words are the residue of colonization. It is your mind still being twisted, not at the core, on the surface. You speak like a Christian. You've been trained to speak like a Christian. And that's what I can tell you, because I helped my guru translate the Bhagavad Purana. That was my background for this. So everyone doing translation all over the last 100 years, all of those gurus that brought the Veda to the West were wonderful, brave, pioneers. Vivekananda, what a hero. But it wasn't the time in history when they could do this work. It was all they could do to take Bharat to the West and show their own dignity and their own intelligence and have people go, well, that's not what I expected. That's an interesting culture. So this is what happened up till now. And this is, as I said, Vishnu coming to the West. I'll tell you a funny story. At age 23, I went into my guru's ashram and I called my father to tell him it wasn't a good thing for him to hear. It was all American, completely. But I had to tell him, Dad, I'm into ashram. You what? See? So I said, Dad, weren't you in the Air Force? Because I had a question. Where did I come from? I said, you were in the Air Force during World War II, right? Yeah, he said. I said, where were you stationed? He said, Mumbai. He was flying C-47, which was a 2-engine, propeller-driven transport plane, flying 100-octane fuel over the Himalayas for the China-Burma operation. He was 19 years old when he was doing it. So he said, well, I said, Dad, did you go to any temples? He said, yeah. I said, I did once. I said, so what was it like? He said, well, I went in and the priest said to me, this and this and this and this. And I said, did you eat any food? He said, yeah, prasad, something like that. Prasad? I said, while you were there in India, did you swim in any rivers? He said, yeah, the Ganga or something like that. And you know what happens when a man swims in the Ganga? All the Atmas waiting to take birth again get inside of him. And I said, so then what? The priest said, may you have a son devoted to Vishnu. So this is going on in the background all the time. Bhagavan is making a plan. We need to understand it. We need to think like that. We need to think we're part of a strategic transformation. And often things have to get really bad before the medicine is welcome. But look, you have hundreds of millions of female yogis around the world. So what if we had a book that they could read easily? So I'm going to tell you what I think this really was meant to be. But one more thing. I talked about the 6 Veda Angas. You know, the top one is Jyotish. So Jyotish is one of the sciences. I'm a Jyotishi. So Jyotish is one of the sciences that shows us the connection to astronomy. There's a scholar named Nilesh Oak. Have you heard of Nilesh Oak? Look him up online. Nilesh's work has proven the history of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, that they're 7,000 and 14,000 years old, that the Rig Veda is at least 21,000. He's proven it astronomical. This is remarkable. So the ice is breaking. It's melting. And so this process is what is next. Number 1, remove the colonizing English. If I can ask you, please don't forget this when you go home. Make this high on your list of things to do. Do not use colonizing English to describe your culture. Next, talk to someone like myself whose English is very specific, very precise. So you find out exactly which words to use and not to use to describe your culture. This is how I'm paying my debt back to my gurus. Together, we're going to rewrite history because we're now going to make this available. All right. And then the last of the 6 Veda Angas is Kalpa. Kalpa was misnamed pagan sacrifice by the Christians. It's not pagan sacrifice, it's science. It's the science of how Prakriti is working. Because the science was embedded in the relationship with the devas, and that's what the Agnihotra Yajna was. It's a constant connection between us and the laws of nature, personified by the devas and devis. They're not many gods. They're not gods at all. They're departments. Everything that's working, and the fact that we're here means departments of people everywhere and here are making it possible. So we should honor them and thank them. Similarly, the devas and devis are part of cosmic biodiversity. So what's the one thing then that is the toxin and missing vitamin in the whole world? Think about it before I say it. What do you think the most toxic problem of the world is? Here we go. Bhavanam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Chapter 7, verse 19, Bhagavad Gita. After many, many births in the pursuit of higher understanding, one finally comes to the conclusion, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. So, this is a class. Life is a class. Death is final exams. When you talk to somebody, you should be asking yourself, what is their adhikari? What grade level are they in? What can I share with them that they are ready for? Because if they're not ready, it won't work. They can't hear it yet. You have to feed them the next bite that they need, not what you want to say, but what they will eat and flourish from next. So you need to become the Vishwa Gurus. You need to get trained to be that. So that in all of your interactions with the world, so here's the next piece. Let's just say 108 Sanskrit words. Moksha, Brahman, Prakriti, Atma, so forth. Words like that do not exist in English. There's no equivalent. There's no synonym. They're only in Sanskrit. There is no other English word to use. So you have to teach them to people. When you meet someone who's got some interest in your culture, you have to give them a vocabulary. Because remember, here's the big missing vitamin. Ready? Everyone thinks they only have one silly little lifetime. That's terrifying. That's horrible. That's what the Abrahamics did. They said, you only have one lifetime. You're all sinners, so you're all horrible. And so we're going to tell you what to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to go to hell and get punished. It's a wonderful way to welcome someone into the material world. That's what happened to me. I was born in a born-again Christian family. I thought of it as born again. I was bored. And now I'm born again and again and again and again and again and again Hindu. One lifetime or a lot of time in which to develop. Which do you think is more interesting? Which do you think is more fun? But this is the fundamental disease of our whole planet. One lifetime disease. They think they have one lifetime, they're behaving according, they're greedy, they're too passionate, they're destroying everything, they're taking everything. Is that Sanatana Dharma? Just the opposite. So right now, you have an opportunity to reorganize science, the science that Sanskrit created. And you have an opportunity to show people that the programming language that was given, who knows when, but at least 21,000 years ago, no less than, because it was intact completely for the Rig Veda and the other Vedas to be written. And it's the same language since. It doesn't change. That's how it's designed. None of the components of Sanskrit. So there's a word, linguistic drift. If I say to you, do you get my drift? I already know I'm not being specific. And I'm sort of, sort of that. The sort of that word is spiritual. Please tell me what it means. And I'll embarrass you. Yes, nobody knows. Spiritual means to breathe. Inspiration. That's it. So when somebody tells me they're spiritual, I say, that's interesting. I have no idea what you mean by that, but I'm glad you're breathing. It's a meaningless word. It has no meaning aside from breathing. Its use is, that stuff over there. What do we call that stuff over there in Sanskrit? Brahman. Brahmabhuta Vasanatmana Sochina Kankshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu. Sanskrit. So, Sanskrit has to come to the foreground and become the new programming language for the planet, because it's already given rise to binary mathematics. We can already show our children that the technology as we know it came from Sanskrit. The technology as we know it is being used to colonize the planet. It's not being used to sustain the planet. And sustainability is the basis of the Vedic Vidya. It's the basis of Sanatana Dharma. It's to act in such a way that Mata Bhumi will still be here. And by the way, where does the word human come from? I'm glad you asked. Humus. The dirt on the ground is called humus. Now, here's a secret. If you just look at a word, and if maybe a letter was dropped, and maybe the word is a Sanskrit word with a dropped letter, you mean like bhumi, mata bhumi. Human is bhumi, bhuman. We're mata bhumi's children. So this means whatever we do should be between us and her. And we should say, I promise to honor my relations 7 generations back and protect my children 7 generations forward. You see, as Vishva gurus, you have to reassert the original programming language that is the most important one. You need to use that vocabulary. You need to throw out the Christian words that are colonizing and bring them together. Now, the 3 texts that all Vedantins must comment upon are the 10 Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutras of Veda Vyas, which were given during the time Krishna was on the ground. Vyasadeva wrote down the Vedas. So then those are the basis or the three pillars of Vedanta, and the Acharya has to comment on those three. Oh, I forgot one. Vedanta Sutras, 10 Principal Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. Anyone who wants to establish a sampradaya in the Vedic context, Swami Narayan group did this a few years back. Their Acharya had the monks write a tika, commentary on those three Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita. They were recognized internationally by Vedic scholars, and they became a sampradaya. So this is how it happens. But you see, you can't give your children the 10 Upanishads. It's overwhelming. You can't give them the Vedanta Sutras of Vyasadeva because it's too advanced. The user's manual for the Vedic Sanatana Dharma culture in the modern world in which we live, so that our root, Vishvaguru, our root, this is our Vishvaguru. Book is the Guru, and the Guru carries the book. The book becomes what the Guru is. The Guru simply says what's in the book and lives it. Yad yad acharati shreshtas, tatad evetaro janaha, so yat kamanam kurute, lokastad anuvartate. You, my friends, in spite of your humility or thinking that you can't, need to become competent to describe this story and the words that were used to describe the Hindu Vedic Sanatana Dharma worldview. There's so much more I could say, but I think my time is dangerously close to up. So I'll only say to you this. My voice isn't as good as usual, but I think I can do it. Yasyam samudra bhupasindurabo, yasyam mandam prishta sambhavu, yasyam idam jinvati pranadeva, sano bhumi urume hedalatu, vishvambara vasudani pratishta, hiranyavaksha jagato niveshani, vaishvanaram Didvati Bhumir Agni Indra Ushabatamino Dadatu Hiryasve Parvata Himavantaanyam Devadivisyo Namasku Arjun Krishna Rohini Vishvarupam Purvambhumi Ridivi Indra Gupta Ajato Hato Akshato Jasham Pudiviyaham Yate Madhyam Pridiviyakyanabhyam Yastabulyat Samba Sambhavuhu Dasu Loke Habina Prabhasvabhata Bhumi Putro. Everyone. Bhumi Putro. Big voice. Bhumi Putro. Bhumi Putra. Bhumi Putra. We're the children of Bhumi. Mata Bhumi. It's a person. She's alive. She's a real entity. The whole universe is purposeful, intentional, divine, sacred, and fosters our well-being and is an opportunity to finally know who we are and then decide from a bhuti prasanatmana sochati nakanchati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktyam labhate param. You have to want this more than anything else. But meanwhile, while you are here, help others. So the rule I have is this: no coercion, no conversion, only friendly conversation. But whether it's this version or another, this is the user's manual for Kali Yuga. That's why Bhagavan Sri Krishna came, appeared as an avatar, and left this with Arjuna. And right now the world looks a lot like Kurukshetra, doesn't it? So what's missing is the Gita. The rest of Kurukshetra and worse is there. Thank you for this opportunity. Pranams, namaste, Jai Shri Krishna.
Please. We now have an opportunity for conversation with Jeffrey. So we will circulate sheets in case you would like to write your questions down. So that we could surely take up those questions. Before I take up the questions from the audience, there's one question which I have in mind. Jeffrey, you told us about the need to decolonize our conversations, which is a great starting point. But the question I have for you is, you have been coming to Bharat Bhumi for the last 3 decades now. And yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure. Last 2 decades you have been coming to Bharat. And now we have a medium like YouTube, which is resulting into massive explosion of information, concepts, ideas, particularly to the youth. Do you see an opportunity to use that medium of conveying the post that you just now conveying to us, that we need to change the framework of conversations to decolonize our conversations and use the right medium? We already see such efforts happening over particularly last 5-6 years. Would like to respond to that question before I take up the audience questions. Yeah, I know.
Say the last part.
Yes, so last 5-6 years, we particularly see a huge explosion arising out of YouTube as a medium which is providing a lot of information. You yourself have been active on Chitti Media. Every week you have conversations with audiences globally. Is it helping the conversation? Is it helping the change in conversations, decolonizing the conversation? What's your observation? Do you already see that momentum building up, or we have a lot more way to go?
Technology at this point represents 2 possibilities: total domination of all human beings by despotic persons who have absolute control over every aspect of their life. That is now possible in a way that it was never possible before. This is all the more reason why the Sanatana Dharma and dharmic attitude toward life is so important. That if we don't take charge of technology and make sure that it doesn't become a total despot, then technology will become that. Because the greed of colonization hasn't stopped. It has gotten worse. What we're doing right now is a culture of extraction, taking everything from the planet that we can and using it now. And along with that comes the most dangerous weapons we've ever had in the hands of idiots, in the hands of people who don't care. So in this critical time, 2 things. That time must not contaminate your yoga practice, your meditation. You must not let that stop you from being in that pure state of connection to Brahman and to the being of your choice. Secondly, that conversation is something you need to learn to have, to speak about Matabhumi. It wasn't an accident that I brought us to Matabhumi because it's known as the bottom line. The bottom line is, if you as a culture don't do what you always did before, you're the only one who invented the term Bhumi, and from that came human. So humanity began in Bharata. So therefore, if there's a purpose you need to reinstate, it is be the one waving the flag, not of India, not of Hinduism, not of a culture that's political in the normal sense, but be the ones carrying the flag of Matabhumi. The whole world will either show their colors and be Asura and say, I don't care, Or they'll say, look at those wonderful people who are actually saying the truth we need to hear right now about the danger to all of us at Matabhumi and life as we know it. We must not let technology lead us there. Thanks.
Pay for sale, and Jeffrey has waived his royalty on it, so the publishers have been able to offer an excellent discount. So please use that opportunity to go through it yourself and gift it. But Jeffrey, would you like to give some flavor of some of the words that you have? You did refer to them, but would you like to pick on a few words and explain why you felt a compelling reason to remove them from the typical the translations that you have gone through 70-75 translations yourself. You have helped your guru in translating the Bhagavad Purana, as you said. You clearly saw this as a problem, and as you rightly said, an opportunity. So, could you give us some flavor of some of those words that you particularly felt compelling, needed to remove them from the English translations? Just a few examples, so that I would assemble a few more questions.
In medicine, the heart, sometimes called our ticker, tick, 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 boom, 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 boom. The doctor who takes care of your heart is called what? Anyone want to tell me? Just say it out loud. Heart doctor? Cardiologist? Yeah, excellent, thank you. Cardiologist. Cardia is the Latin. Cardia. Now think about it for a moment. Do you think that might be a Sanskrit word hiding inside of English? How about Hridaya? The heart is called Haridaya. It means the couch of Hari, the place where Hari is sitting. Haridaya. And what is Hari? One who removes all things that are not beneficial is known as Hari. You see how that word is buried in English and no one knows it? How about this one? Heaven. I want to go to heaven. Oh, well, I can arrange that. That's easy. No problem. I've got a special way of doing that. You come to my house and I'll make you some oatmeal. You know, some cereal. And you'll go to heaven eating that oatmeal. Because in Old English, oatmeal is called Aven. A-V-E-N. And it comes from the Scottish, and where the Scottish lived above England, it was very cold and inhospitable. And the glaciers had scraped away most of the soil. So there were only a few crops that would grow there, and one of them was oats. Oats. And so they would grow the oats, they would come with a sickle, cut them down in a tall truck and a pitchfork, and they would throw the oats up into the truck, which was called Heaven the Aven, or heaven. Heaven is enough oatmeal for the winter. Now, do you think that heaven then is a synonym for Svargaloka? Does it mean the same thing? Is that what Svargaloka means? Enough oatmeal? No. It's a loka, locus, but the lokas are not even known in the Western civilization. So Svargaloka is where all the oatmeal is, right? No. It's heaven, right? No. These are the kind of words that are all through. Sure, let's do Lord. Lordy, lordy, lordy. That one gets abused. Lord Macaulay, I hate calling him that. Lord. And what do you call the person who owns your apartment? Landlord. Oh, so that's the Lord then. Or is it the person who owns the land in a hereditary way? Now, hereditary ownership of land is called a caste system. The British invented it. We did not. Because we have the Varna system. The Varna system is based on your Jyotish and your abilities. And you're not born into a particular propensity for work, but you're eligible because you have the makings of a particular, like a Kshatriya. Everyone cannot be a Kshatriya. It's a Varna, which means if you don't have the right attitude, the right body, the right muscles, the right reflexes, you can't do it. The right mindset. So we, the Vedic culture, did not have a caste system. We had a system of organizing people that was the belly, the head, the legs, and the arms of culture, of society. Kshatriya. Kshatriya does not initially mean to hurt, it means to protect. The job of those who are powerful is to protect. Brahman knows Brahman. But what does Christianity know about that? What does English know about that? Nothing. And then Vaishya means produces. It produces things of various kinds that are needed for life. So they're not into ecology because they'll be out of a job in a few years if they don't take care of the soil. So it didn't just mean exploiting Mathabhumi, it meant living with Mathabhumi, with your hands in the soil and knowing how to make sure that next year there's a crop. Just a quick side note on that. In the Agnihotra Yajna, think for a second, what's the last step of the Agnihotra Yajna? Nobody knows. Anyone? Last step. We see the wood that made the fire is filled with minerals. When a tree grows, it pulls minerals from the ground. Those minerals are in our food also. So, after the Agnihotra Yajna, and we say to the Devas, thank you, we promise to take care of the world on your behalf. Then the ashes that are left are put in the garden so that the soil has nutrients. So it's recycling, it's ecology. So each of these words is a storehouse of twisted information, or they're hiding and disguised. So there's three categories. There's the disguised English words, and then there's also, so what is an angel? I told you earlier, Angirasa. It's the helpers of Agni, as Agni is taking the offering to the rest of the Devas. And it's our promise to cooperate with Mathabhumi and with the laws of nature. There are so many of these interesting words. And this is the project I'm working on right now, to bring them out in book form. And then, so let's go to the Sanskrit. So what is this place we're living in, the whole big thing called in English? A universe. Universes, one turning. So what is it called in Sanskrit? Jagat. What's the difference? One lifetime on a world that's turning, or God, moving forward, God, by by birth. So once again, this is the basis of the Vedic civilization. It's a Mahatma culture, not a Duratma culture. Mahatma Gandhi, I'm sorry to say, ruined the word Mahatma, because he gave the wrong advice for getting rid of the British. And he was just a coward. He was afraid to stand up, but Chandra Bose was not. And you see what happened to him. So now is the time for us to all together make a plan to get our language right, to reframe this conversation, to add Sanskrit words so that we can show them. So here's the other word, the Vedic world view. Just imagine if someone said, you described the auditorium you were in while the speaker was speaking. You'd say, well, it had drapes over there with gold at the top and white at the bottom, and this over here, and Nagaraj over there, and this over here, and that over there. It's a worldview. So you give them a worldview. The Vedic Sanskrit has a world view of the reality that we're in the midst of. But I do not see people from Bharat using those words to describe themselves. Because kind of they're just going, we don't want to have this conversation. It's too difficult. It's not. Now is the time to have it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So you gave examples of millions of women having taken to yoga. Bharat is now asserting its soft power. But there is one question which has come. Is it also not time for Bharat to use its hard power than just the soft power? Because we see clearly a lot of energies working against our civilization even now. You did make a reference to conversations instead of conversion, but we see conversions taking place in broad daylight, even in the modern times. So what do you think is the solution to that issue? Just soft power, or is there a need for hard talk and hard decisions?
That's a great question. One of my favorite scenes in the Mahabharata. The Pandavas and Draupadi are about to go into exile. This was told to me by my professor of Sanskrit. It was taught to me. And so they were all going to go into the forest. And for 13 years, the 13th year incognito, they were now to stay away and not be involved in the politics of the culture and family and places that they were actually supposed to be. And so before they left, Yudhishthira was looking a little unhappy, and that's not normal for him. So Damya, the guru of the family, said to him, "What's wrong?" And he said, well, and Damya said, "I know you're not afraid. You're not afraid of anything. So something is bothering you." And Yudhishthira said, "Yes, because once we're out in the forest, we will no longer be able to feed people." The definition of a Kshatriya is someone who protects. And the first thing in protection is making sure the belly is full of healthy food, not McDonald's, not junk food, but healthy food. All Kshatriyas are to protect that first. So Damya said to him, "All right, I'm going to give you a mantra and a copper pot and the Akshar Patra, because you're going to drive it by the Akasha, by the Akshar. And I'm going to teach you," he said, "the 108 names of Surya, of the sun. And if you chant that mantra every day, the Akshaya Patra will make an unlimited amount of whatever Draupadi cooks in the morning. And it will be there all day." In other words, the pot will make an unlimited amount of food all day long. So an army runs on its belly. Surya Aryaman Bhagat Vastar Bhushan Arka Savita Ravi. Then my Sanskrit guru gave me the names. This happened because I said, I'm a white guy who became a Hindu. It's kind of lonely. There's not too many people like me. It's a bit lonely. I said, "I feel like I'm in exile." So he gave me the mantra, 108 names of the sun, that was given to Yudhishthira. And so I have been chanting that mantra ever since, every day, all the time, because I'm in exile. But so are you. So is your culture. And so we've got to start at the place where it's undeniable. Sandy and I, in Vancouver, Canada, have done something quite regularly over the last 20 years. We call it spud patrol. A spud is English for a potato. We make baked potatoes wrapped in tinfoil. We take 500 or 1,000 of them out on the street with butter, sour cream, salt and pepper, plates. And we go to the poorest area of town where the slum is, where they're living on the streets, and we give them potatoes. And we would hear, God bless you, more times in one day than you've heard in your life. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. No one is taking care. So we've got to make a change. My point is that you cannot take back the Vishva Guru without having the Vishva Kshatriya. And that doesn't mean go fight. It means when you feed everyone and make sure that they're having a dignified life, and then find the correct occupation for them and help them achieve training in that. That is how you cure a social body. You don't do it politically. You do it by putting your money where your mouth is. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm kind of combining two questions. We see a paradigm today that churches are getting empty in Europe. But here we see a lot of conversion activity on the other hand going on. At the same time, we also find people like you who have, out of choice, taken to Sanatana Dharma culture. What do you see are the main reasons why this trend is unfolding in Europe or in the US, where people are getting more interested in Sanatana Dharma culture? And one other question, related question, is that there is a lot of awareness among the Bharatiya youths today that yes, they have been disconnected from a treasure. There is a need to go back to it, start unfolding, opening that up. But they have their own responsibilities in career. They're quite busy with that. What are your suggestions? I mean, on one hand, kindly explain to us how the world is shifting towards the Sanatana Dharma culture as people like you represent. On the other hand, we clearly see a need among the Indian youth to take that up. How do you think, what are the baby steps they can take to move in that direction?
Chaotic years of colonization. A lot of interesting things happen. There's a saying in the UK that for 300 years, the British colonized India with gunpowder. And in 50 years, India colonized England with curry powder. Because the English food is terrible. So you don't eat at an Indian restaurant in London, you get junk. Goes around, comes around. There's something missing. And just imagine that at some time in the past, let me ask you another question. What is the strongest hunger inside of you? What are you so hungry for that you can't get enough of it? I already know it's not being greedy and selfish, and you wouldn't be here. You already are adhikari and are driven by another hunger. What can I do with that hunger? That's the question that we've been asking from life to life. And when you really develop a relationship with Bhagavan, with Sri Bhagavan, you don't say, here's what I want. Give me the following. You say, please use me in Seva, in future lives, for as long as you want. Bring me back again and again, but make sure that I'm hungry only for you. So this is what you and I have in common. Skin doesn't matter at all. The hunger for Seva and Vedic Vidya and truly being of service, that is everything. It goes beyond religion. It goes beyond even Dharma. It becomes what we're really here for, is to see every living entity as valuable, and to the best of our ability, to arrange the world in such a way that they have dignity and that they have a life. And if we do this together, this will be the renaissance of the Hindu Vedic Sanatana Dharma culture. It's got to be very visibly making a difference in those who are suffering the most. We care. Next, the reasonable persons who have come back will hear the message, just as I did. I was so hungry for something, and I didn't know what it was until my guru came. I knew it wasn't present in Western civilization. It wasn't present in the Abrahamic religions, because they're Guru-atma. This is Mahatma. This is Mahatma. So that's the answer. You must be Mahatma. Don't think small for yourself. Your Atmas who've come back, you can choose to do amazing things. Your children will listen to you and look at what you're doing and saying. Now, here's one more thing. It might be, though, it's possible, I hope not, that your children were British in their last life and came back to be part of this drama. So this is the Mahatma worldview. You've got to take a big view or you'll stay small. Small-minded, Duratma. If you get this bigger mindset, then you'll look around all the time to see fellow individuals who are like that. You'll make networks of such people. You'll associate the way we are right now. And I'll tell you one thing, that I have an insatiable hunger for Vedic culture. I cannot get enough, 24/7. Since I was 23, I'm 77. I want more. I want it every day. I chant mantras all day long. And there's no reason that any of us can't do that. And then you look at every situation and say, what can I do that's dharmic? What can I do to be of service?
Thank you. You did bring forth one of the dimensions of difference in the Abrahamic traditions and the Sanatana Dharma culture, which is one lifetime versus many opportunities to go to this university, as you said. You have also been a Jyotishi. So I just want to blend these two things and ask you a question. From Vedic Jyotish perspective, do you see clear evidence of these multiple lifetimes? And therefore, the opportunity to take birth again and again and to improve till you really discover what you truly are. And till then, maintain that hunger to reach that, whether it's, many lifetimes or whatever. So, would you like to blend these two things and give us also a Jyotish perspective to this in terms of your study, your guidance to so many thousands of people in terms of discovering their purpose of life, and this completely different paradigm of multiple opportunities?
Interestingly enough, this question leads us to something that is the primary discussion of Vedanta. It is Brahman as something that you merge with and lose your individuality, or Brahman as something that you return to without losing your individuality. Now, I must say to you that this is a choice for each person to decide, but it's pretty clear to me that the great acharyas, including Shankara, supposedly the champion of Advaita, or mistranslated as oneness. It's not oneness, it's Brahmanness. Brahmanness, translated as English oneness, means you become one being. And that isn't simply not what the Veda says. It says that you came here by choice. You have the experience of it as an individual. And you will go back when you as an individual decide to do so. So why then is the individuality erased? If my individuality brought me here, and my individuality makes decisions that will give me moksha and send me back, so this idea that we're all the same, which is true, we're the same in essence. In our essential nature, we're all Atmas. If you call that oneness, then we are all, but I have to say, of a similar design. But then Brahman and our Atma wasn't designed, so we then must say something like Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Asochati Nakanchati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. You don't give up your individuality. You get bigger than it. You become Maha Atma. You don't abandon individuality. And this has ruined the expression of the Vedic teachings. And it was Christianity who wanted this to happen, because by making it oneness or emptiness, something with Buddha, nirvana, means none of this is mine and none of this is me. Nirvana, nirvana, that's not me, that's not me. I'm looking for what is me. Nirvana, nirvana, nirvana. It's a not this, not iti, not that. It's Samkhya. Samkhya means what you're not. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. Fine, then who are you? Aham Brahmasmi. But if you erase yourself at that moment, how can you have bhakti? And pardon me for saying it, but the Bhagavad Gita is all about us. Arjuna was our representative. So it's all about us having a direct, friendly relationship with Bhagavan. Don't erase yourself with oneness or nirvana. That's shedding the shackles of Prakriti. That's admitting that we're all of a similar nature so that we see each other with respect and see the same possibility inside of everyone. But don't abandon your individuality, because Bhagavan is saying, he said to Arjuna, you know, Arjuna, I'm going to explain myself to you because we're friends. So this is the additional. If this is the user's manual, then just see the Vedic culture as user-friendly. Not as too complicated as the propaganda is. Not as abandoning the individuality, which Christianity wanted to see us do, because then we become a nobody. If you give up your individuality, it's a plot to make you be disempowered. Then how can you honestly go and help other individuals if there's no individuality? You're a hypocrite. Instead, aham brahmasmi. You also. I do this. I say, I see the real you. I like to say, have a namaste. See everyone that way. See yourself that way. And everything will change.
Jeffrey, just, I think you answered in great detail, but one dimension I would like again bring you back to is your Jyotish dimension to this. I think you explained this very nicely, but particularly when you advise people, when they come to you with challenges, how do you help them to see this bigger picture and reconnect with the bigger purpose when they're actually overwhelmed by the current situation? And give them that perspective which lifts them up to really rise to their real purpose in life.
All right, you caught me. It's a little bit like when Arjuna said to Bhagavan, could you show me, how you entered into the universe? And Krishna says, you sure you want to see that? Yeah, I want to see it. All of a sudden, and everything is eating everything, and fire is everywhere, and I can show you. Make it go away, make it go away. It was too big a question. My guru of Jyotish was very smart in this regard. He told me, if you tell somebody what to do, you eat their karma. A Jyotishi is not supposed to tell someone what to do. And we're not so wise and profound that we can see exactly what's going to happen with everyone. What we can see is the symptoms of their karma. We can see the mood that the planets are creating at a given time. We can see the pushes and pulls of the graha. Graha means to grasp. So we at first don't know that the 9 grahas have a hold of us. It's like there's a rope between us and they're pulling on us. But it depends on our birth chart, what that's like when they touch us, because we have a different temperament and we're more like one planet than another. Some are like Shukra, some are like Brihaspati, some are like Buddha, some are like Jani. So it's more a matter of knowing who you're like, who you're working for, what your particular constitutional nature is, and then what are they doing in the sky right now? Is that likely to affect me right now? But if I go too much further, I'll start telling you what to do right now, and then I get your karma. That's going too far. This is why astrology has a bad name. They're supposed to predict the future. You're not supposed to try to create the future for the person. That's not your job. You're supposed to help them face the future by understanding the present and by seeing the forces that are inside of them and outside of them, and being alert when those are changing so that they can observe for themselves. It's a very important principle that we are not supposed to abuse Jyotish for control or exploitation, because you can easily imagine it can be used to exploit life. Because if you tell me what's happening next, then I can gain more control and then I can dominate others and my business will be more successful than yours. That's not the purpose of Jyotish. The purpose of Jyotish is to help us understand the way we're constituted, watch it and feel it and see it circling around us. So I have a term for this. The grahas are UPS, Universal Parcel System. Yes, they will drop a parcel on your door, but it's not my job to tell you exactly what and when and what you should do about it. But it is my job to help you understand yourself. So Jyotish and Ayurveda are 2 branches of Samkhya Yoga.
Thank you. I think we have limited time now, so I will take one last question. I have many other questions, but I think we'll have to do it some other day, or maybe people can comment on your Chitty Media video and then you could perhaps respond. You did mention that we are in a situation of flux. There is we see a lot of chaos going on right now before we actually see the better days. How do you read this whole situation, from the Western world? A lot of things happening around the world, but we also see signs of the dawn happening beyond this darkness. You see something positive emerging out of this flux, which is currently taking place. And what do you think those signs are, which are positive, which are very encouraging for us to take it forward?
I'm sure you've reflected upon this before. When someone knows something because of the Shastra, or because of their guru, then they can speak with a considerable amount of conclusiveness, because they're not speaking on their own behalf. They're speaking on behalf of a lineage of gurus who have passed that message down for a very long time. So they use a different tone of voice. And if you say, can you prove that? I say yes, in the Shastra, in this Purana, in this Upanishad. I'm accountable. If I say this is true, you say, where's it from? That's respectful. That's not disrespectful. But when it comes to questions like this, I shouldn't be in the same tone of voice because I don't know. The relativity of this situation is so immense. The mathematics and the newness of it is so different than everything else. The only thing I can know for sure is that this probably is the meaning of Kali Yuga. And what I do see right now, and I'm sure you see it also, is that because technology is now making humans, full stop, making humans in a test tube. When I grew up, that was called Frankenstein. That was a monster. That was not a baby. We are playing with forces unprecedentedly. We are commanding life to obey us in ways that are unprecedented. And I can only say that there's no need to do that. And therefore, it is Asura. It is dangerous. It is not the light of the sun. It is not the correct understanding of how we come together correctly and organically and respectfully. So we are in more danger right now than we have ever faced. And those dangers are difficult to grasp, subtle. They're at a very subtle level of our organism. You practically have to have a PhD in science to understand what's happening to you. So I believe we should have a committee with scientific skills and yogic characteristics who look at these things and discuss them and point out their uses and their dangers and give us some idea of what those are, because it's way too much for each individual amongst us to really grasp and get the whole picture. So we need departments that do that. I was at such a university the other day. Dimple, what was the name of that university? Do you remember the one on the one dedicated to health? All India Institute of Ayurveda. Now, here's a good example of bringing allopathic medicine and its advances and dangers and degradations. So that's what we're saying. And Ayurvedic medicine and its categories and its more organic perspective. There is a place where both are useful, and there's a place where you become a monster. This is the gunas. We have to decide what is sattva. And now it's being challenged more than ever before. So I can't just say what it should be or is, but I can say that it should be one of the most important topics in your life, one of the most important topics that you discuss with your children, and that again, this generation of youth are the greatest at risk to become confused by this and led down the wrong way.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I think we would really love to go on, but I think we have to honor time of yourself and the people here. So for those whose questions I couldn't take for the want of time, I apologize. I think we have to also honor time of everyone. So I would now invite Shri Satish Patankar to propose a formal vote of thanks, and then we'll conclude the program today. Before I come to the vote of thanks, with Abhijit's permission, I want to give an information and make some appeal to the audience, because I can see many new faces in the audience today who are not our regular visitors for various programs that we conduct. We have something called as WhatsApp membership, or we can call it as a green membership. All you have to do is fill up one form here in the office and pay some notional fees of 120.
and become a WhatsApp member for the whole year. It's an annual membership through which you can, sitting at home, you get information of all the programs that we conduct over the year. There are almost 90 to 100 programs that we conduct in a year on various subjects, as already our president has mentioned in his initial speech. So I appeal to all of you, please do become a WhatsApp member and avail the benefit of getting information of our programs. Coming to the word of thanks, I may say that Mr. Jeffrey Armstrong must have picked up something far more valuable when he landed up in Bharat Bhumi than what Neil Armstrong did when he landed on the moon to pick up a handful of soil from home. And I feel very proud of not only my Bharat Bhumi, but also I'm really grateful on behalf of all of you to Mr. Jeffrey Armstrong for giving us this assumption that what Bharat Bhumi is to the world in today's scenario, especially with its all soft power. So thank you very much. And he has not only given us this assertion, but he has also given us the way to do it. More before I realized the importance of language, and probably many of you might have realized this point that the language comes with a whole lot of, what I should say, with a whole lot of culture, with a whole lot of background that is specific to that language. And any translation cannot transpire that legacy that the language carries with it. So that's a very valuable, I would say it's a takeaway for us that whenever we think of communicating our culture to the world, it is the language that really matters, because as we rightly pointed out, and all of us know that we are being taught by Macaulay and not by our own tradition and our own legacy. So in a way, somebody has reintroduced us to our own legacy, I would say. So thank you very much. And thank you, Mrs. Armstrong, also for joining this event here today. I must also thank Dr. Abhijit, who is our friend, our well-wisher, our mentor, and I'll say a family member of Maharashtra Seva Sangh. I really envy him because Maharashtra Seva Sangh is hosting Mr. Armstrong only for a couple of hours, but he has been hosting him for probably a couple of days, and this is the second time now. So I really envy him what a great treasure he must be able to share and contribute with him. So thank you, Dr. Abhijit. And on behalf of Maharashtra Seva Sangh, I thank all of the audience for being here for this great event. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Some of you might be knowing Archit Gokhale, who is our volunteer of Vigyan Vibhag. He has designed in his own way, solar calendar, which you might be aware of, which is supposed to be one of the technically most correct, astronomically most correct calendar, which surpasses the Gregorian calendar, of course, in its correctness or precision. So Archit has specifically requested me to offer that calendar to Mr. Armstrong on behalf of all of us. I'm going to hand it over to him right now. It is not with me, but definitely when we go to office, we'll offer him that. So just for your own information, because this calendar is something that is our own Indian calendar, which has got the highest precision amongst all the calendars that we have all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish. Mr. Armstrong wanted to gift a special copy of the Bhagavad Gita to Shri Chandrasekhar Vaze. So may I request Shri Vaze to come on the dais. And
This is the copy you keep next to your altar. This is the one you take to work. And I'm so honored and pleased to have been able to be here at night. Meet you all, so thank you very much.
There's one piece very important piece I forgot mentioning as a part of Jeffrey's introduction. Professor said that he has come all the way from Canada, but I forgot to tell you the reason why he has come all the way, which is that the ICCR, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, from 2015 has instituted the Distinguished Indologist of the Year Award. And Kavindraji, Jeffreyji was a recipient of that in 2021, which consists of a prize of $20,000 and of course hosting him in our country. So he has come this time as a guest of our country, right? And of course he's a part of our family, but this time he has come on the government invitation. That is a difference after his tapasya of 50 years. So this is, I think, a big thing I forgot to mention. My apology for that. So with this, we conclude and we look forward to this journey where, as Satish very rightly pointed out, we begin with the language and the conversations. Thank you so much.